Here.
Emily Britt,
Here.
Paul Nelson. Here. Jack Munich. Here. And Brett Houck, I'm here. So with that, we have a quorum. So let's stand for opening prayer and first the flags. Would you join me, please? Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful, nice spring day. We thank you for your love for us, for the privilege we have to serve our community through this board. We pray that all that we go on tonight would be done for your honor and glory. We ask you to give us understanding for the issues before us. We ask that we would take a direction that would honor you and serve our community. We thank you for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Right.
Join the pledge to the U.S. flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now to the Texas flag.
Honor the Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to the United States, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Oh, pretty good, sir. Any comments from the public? Any requests for adjustments? So consent agenda items 5 through 9 on the agenda. Anybody have any comments or questions on those? I have one question on item 13 on page 3. When we talked about the rate change, the last paragraph in item 13 talked about an insert explaining the change will be included in the bills. Did that happen, or was there just something highlighted? I don't recall seeing an insert in my bill. Was there?
It was in the bill, yes. And then we've done several social media posts on it as well.
You mean in the bill, meaning what was the highlighted yellow?
Okay, it's a separate box that showed what it was.
Okay. Did we get any feedback on that? Anybody?
Great. I mean, they appreciated that we pulled it out, and then we're getting good feedback on the social media posts as well.
Okay.
That they understood, what it was and why.
Okay. I kind of thought of an insert being like a separate piece of paper and.
Oh, that's different. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Good that we're getting some feedback. Anybody else have any questions or comments on the consent agenda? I have a proposal that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Oh, Chris is at the table. I was looking for your chair. So Chris, item 10.
Item 10. All right, so our report begins on page 20 in your packet and goes to about 38 or so. Nothing out of the ordinary. You can see that January's water loss was 5.38%, so it was reduced down a little bit from what you had seen in some months prior. The reason it was generally above 4 or 5%, you can see on page 21. We had a lot of the ESTs, water towers that were drained, so they could be inspected to determine when they need to be rehabbed. So a lot of water loss, unfortunately, with that. But we are still working with Woodlands Water to see if there's leaks that aren't accounted for, if there's meter issues, whatever it could be that is causing the water loss to be a little bit higher.
How much water was accounted by the draining of the towers?
It looks like 1 million, roughly 1.8 to 2 million gallons.
It's on the table on page 21.
Yeah, I see that.
So I guess the question for Eric, we talked about this maybe being tied to the new billing system.
Well, we've uncovered a bunch of stuff, or we've looked into a bunch of stuff, and doesn't appear that it was. There was a few things from that There's definitely a timing issue on the bills, because just you'll notice on both sides of those, there's 1%, which don't make sense. And then today, we're looking at what we're looking at as well, is that it doesn't appear that our water loss is in these numbers. So there was accounted for water loss. If you notice on the spreadsheet, there's no accounted for water loss listed there since April last year. That green bar is gone. And so that's when there was a change made to where the accounted for losses weren't put together, or we didn't, y'all didn't provide them.
Right.
And so they're not in there. So we're starting to calculate all that to see if that's a piece of it too. Because if you average out all of those months, it comes to about 5.8, which wouldn't be that far off of our norm.
Yeah.
And then when you add in the losses that we've now realized are not in there, that I think makes up
Makes
pretty much
sense.
all of it. So I think it's bits and pieces. There was a couple billing issues, but those have been resolved. And so it was a little bit of that, a little bit of timing. I think the water loss is a piece of it as well. When you add all those up, I think that covers it. But we're finalizing, our evaluation of that right now.
Okay, so I see the green reappeared in January.
Yeah,
Notice
Okay.
that.
So
It ends in April,
what was the timing on when we went to the new software?
March.
of last year.
And yep,
So the April numbers from last year would be with the new billing system, and they didn't show a spike. Okay.
April wouldn't be for March. You're 1 month in arrears.
yeah, it would have included that first, yeah. It would have included it.
So still a little bit more, but we're
I
hurried.
think yes.
One thing to keep in mind with the graph as well is the River Authority has loss every single month, but if it's less than 0.1%, it's not going to really show on the graph itself because it's too minor. So
How much water does 5.67 represent? Is that 10 million or?
so it just depends I mean, if you look at 5% for February pumped 300 million gallons. So there's enough engineers and accountants here. What's 5% of 300 million?
15.
15. There you go. There you go. So it's a big number, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not too big of a number. But if you look at a 10% loss in the woodlands, and we typically produce about 5.8 billion, then you're talking 580 million over the entire year.
10% would be way over historical.
It would be,
It'd
right.
be-
Now, if you go
By
back,
industry standards, 10% would be high, right?
you got it. Yeah. So at 5%, you're roughly 250 million per year.
The only challenge is our budget was based upon, what, 4? Yeah.
Yeah, industry standard would be around 10%.
Yeah.
A good district would be, 91, 92% accountability. If it got into the 80s, above 10% loss, then you start kind of looking for stuff. Generally, as an engineer for MUDs, that's generally what we used to do is when I got into the 80s, you started looking at, things that might have occurred in operations, big leaks, and if it stayed there and got down pretty low, then you might bring someone in and start looking for, acoustical things, different stuff, but we're not near there. Even at 6, we're way above the industry,
For the system's age.
especially that, and size for that matter too.
Do we need to adjust our budgeted because it's a 2% difference?
We're looking at that with the FY 27 budget that we'll present in June. It's 4.5%, 5% somewhere. It's definitely going to go up. Just don't know exactly where just yet.
This was our hope that when we put in the new meters, we thought it was coming down, right? And we thought we could line out at 4.
But putting in the new meters took you from 10, 11 down to 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So still a win. That's all I have unless you have any other questions.
I got a question, or not a question, comment, confirmation on 31. Again, these are new pages. I appreciate you put them in. 6 months into the year, just to make sure I understand the numbers, this shows that we're accumulating money. Okay, so this is 2.4 million. Is that the number I read on page 31? That's
Right.
okay.
Roughly.
So if we, no chance, I mean, no guarantee that will continue, but if things just wind down, we'd still end up at 2.4 million.
Yeah, if everything else was budget for the rest of the year, 2.4. Now, keep in mind, I'll take you back here to, as soon as I find this one. The reason that is also partially higher is because on page 21, if you look at the graph, since September, October, not too much, but November, December, January, and February, the water production, middle graph, water production and delivery, that's been higher every single month because we're in a drought right now. So it's colder, but you're in a drought. So you're gonna have that more production. Of course, there are some expenses. Salary is always one big thing. But yeah,
They're nice pages, so that all those understand where we're going through the year. So, for sure.
And I have the Bear Branch report if you all would like that.
Sure. Yeah, some good information.
So on page 39 through 47, you have the monthly operating and maintenance report for Bear Branch. So first page on 39, just normal maintenance activity. We will have for you in the immediate future, the 5-year inspection and operations maintenance report that we will distribute through the Google Drive so that y'all can take a look at that. They found a few things that need some minor repairs. And so there is brief discussion about bringing in some topsoil to start getting some of the grass to grow back in areas that were a little blank. Continue to repair the chain link fence as people cut through it. On the Bear Branch Dam modification spillway, I'm on page 40. We have gotten word that the federal government has approved the additional $5 million. And so we are starting our conversations with the Corps to get that contract partnership agreement underway so that we can get added to the project and get that project back up and running.
You guys know the press release on there? Have we done a press release?
We have not done anything yet. We're kind of waiting on Congressman Crenshaw to say when he would like to have that released. That's how he's operated in the past. We didn't want to be in front of him.
Okay.
At the bottom of page 40, there's a reference to the 5-year inspection. And as I said, we'll get you a copy of that report. And then Bear Branch, Panther, drainage improvements, we're still waiting on the Corps acknowledgement, whether they're going to do the feasibility study that we had requested. So if you'll go to page 43.
Quick question on-
Yes, ma'am.
Has the PCEQ approved the 5-year inspection report?
No, ma'am, they have not.
How long does that generally?
If it's anything like some of the other reports that go in there, it could take 4 to 5 months.
So that was submitted in January?
Yes, ma'am.
Is
Thank
it
you.
public domain yet, or is it still private until it's approved?
It's a draft until they approve it.
I mean, can you go to their website and see it?
Probably not.
Okay.
So if you'll go to page 43, similar to what Woodlands Water has done with the various drainage ditches that the MUDs own and operate and maintain, we went through the Bear, Panther, and Alden Branch drainage systems and did a condition assessment. And so if you'll look at page 45, you have this photo color coded to let you know of the outfalls that need some work. And we've identified that there are 13 red ones where, and if you go to page 46, you can see the condition of some of the outfalls. And all we've done is identify the ones that need to be cleaned out. And we're starting to put monies in the budget to address those. Yes, ma'am.
Has this been affected by the construction on 242 at all, or was this done before the construction?
This has been, I'll say, an ongoing continuation of just needing routine maintenance. Because if you look at where you've got red dots on Alden, you've got them on Panther, you've got them on Bear Branch.
So that's within the neighborhoods.
Yes, ma'am. Well, it's the outfalls from the neighborhood into those major drainage ways. No, ma'am.
And the branches.
Okay,
It's, everything's, some of them parallel 242, but the rest of them are just, they're in the woodlands.
so what kind of work will be done? Reforestation? or-
No, ma'am, these are areas where you're going in and removing silt, and you're basically daylighting the ditch so the pipe coming out of the neighborhood will drain and not hold water. So we're having to do some excavation. We'll probably have to reseed it, not sod it, because you want to keep
You wrote-
it open to drain, and you want to minimize the erosion going downstream.
Have been successful in the past?
Well, quite honestly, there hasn't been a whole lot of it done in the past because the directors have basically told us just do the bare minimum. And because of some of the work that Eric's team has been doing, we felt like you all were also interested in seeing similar things on other parts that you may pay for maintenance.
The work that Eric's team's been doing, is that actually causing more of an issue downstream for the,
No, these would be separate from that,
so that that's not causing any more of a problem up here?
not for us, no.
I would just think about how the rainwater moves, lands on the house or the neighborhood, goes through the yard, gets into the street, comes down the drain, goes into the pipes, and makes its way through your ditches, then makes its way to these ditches. And so all of that sediment over time just continues to move downstream and starts to deposit in various areas. And we found some in
Backs up.
What?
And everything starts to back up.
Yep.
So, yeah. So.
Because there's water's coming out of the pipe.
Water. And that's part of what we saw in the woodlands, in the mud ditches. That's what they're finding in the branches as well.
So as water's coming out of the pipe, it's moving at a pretty good clip. Once it gets to a more open area, it slows down, the sediment drops out. And so it typically collects right around the pipes, within 10, 20 feet of the pipe.
I see a cluster of 3 red dots south of 1488.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that maybe a different kind of problem? Grading or something like that? Because it seems like it's,
I don't know the specifics, but we can find out.
One question on 43, you talk about, River Authority has funds for the current budget to address those in red. And
Yes,
then on 47, you talk about
adding
13
funds.
reds and 2027 funds.
Well, what we're doing, we've got some money in the current budget to do just routine maintenance. And then we're going to add some money to that budget item so that we have a little more money to do some more maintenance.
Will the red ones be done this year though?
We're going to try and get them all done this year, but we may not be able to. Kind of depends on what the contractor charges.
How hungry they are. Okay,
Any questions?
great to see this going.
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
I guess we had no comments on the GRP portion. Anything?
All going good. There's no meeting on Monday. Lack of agenda items for February, now March, and then shaping up to be the same for April. So a little vacation from GRP review committee meetings.
Just interesting in light of the global agreement amendments being talked about. There's
That is an item that may be on April's. In March is too soon because we're still expecting one more to come in. Of course, Aubrey just met not too long ago, so trying to get everything together, digest it, form responses, and then probably have something on.
I had a question on page 2. The use of surface water and groundwater.
hold on. Let us back up.
Oh, I'm sorry, 34. There's page 2 above it. I didn't review the contract between the city of Conroe and SJRA for specifics. And I was wondering if they are going to be using more surface water than they have been.
They
And
are.
yes,
Yes.
they're contracted to increase the amount that they have.
They used to be allocated 4 million gallons a day. This took to an average of 8.5 MGD. So it increased 4.5 million gallons a day of surface water.
And percentage wise, what would that be? Like 30, 70, 20?
They're probably close to 40-45% surface water.
Oh, okay.
Based off of last year's numbers growing, it's obviously going to shrink that.
And will the other users as well? Can they use surface water?
What do you mean? Which other users?
Aqua Texas, Quadvest, MSEC.
Sure. MSEC currently does receive water. They started receiving it last week of January. They had facilities. They did receive it, burnt down, rebuilt it. But anybody who wants surface water is willing to apply. Basically send in a note and say, hey, we'd like to have water. Only caveat is, if approved, they have to fund the design and construction of the water line to get it from our water line to their facility. So we've had MUD 94, MUD 99, WCID number 1, and then Woodlands Water all ask for either new allocation or additional allocation. So.
Thank you.
The table on 33 has the current water users and their allocations for 26. Good question though. Let's be clear on that. Yeah, so we have lost our number 1 position for surface water. Kind of going up. Yeah.
There's a request on the table.
It's not a competition though.
Reclaim, claim that glory. That's all I have unless you have anything on GRP or Woodlands.
Right, that's the item 11. Eric, you okay? Then that's what that covered.
Yes.
That takes us to item 12, 13. That I think are yours, Eric.
Yes, 12 and 13 kind of go together. Well, they do go together. 12 is, we had a pay estimate number 6 for the sanitary sewer project in the amount of, after retainage, $130,427.31, of which you had $26,656.81 as your portion of that pay estimate. So I would need the motion and approval of that pay estimate.
No second, or any questions for Eric before we get a second, or a
The
motion?
first step.
Yeah.
I don't see the amount.
Towards the bottom.
28,059.
48.
It starts on 48.
But spreadsheet, oh, it's a spreadsheet.
Yeah,
But 7's on page 49.
49.
Yeah, and that amount will be, would include retainage, but then at the end of the pay estimate of the summary sheet on page 53, you'll see that there was 5% retainage taken out. Your share of that brings your amount down. I mean, as far as what the contractors of the particular pay estimate.
So this is completed work, we're just being asked to pay for what they've done.
I move that we issue payment for a portion of the retail wastewater collection system for the amount of, what is the amount?
26,650,681.
26,651.21.
5681.
56.81. 26,656.81.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that takes care of 12.
Yep, same project. Same project. We have change order number 2, which increases the completion time for the project, extends it a little bit further as they're finishing up. It'll extend it through to June. And so they believe they'll be able to get finished. In that time.
There's a different cost associated with it.
Just an extension of time,
So we're just doing an extension of time, not money,
correct, 90 days.
90-day extension.
We have a motion on that one?
I make a motion to increase the amount of time on the contract to 90 days. The Woodlands wastewater collection system.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 13 carries. Now we move on to 14. Does that go back to Chris or Dave Eric?
Either one of them. I can start it and Chris can finish it or whatever. If you'll look at this document here, this has the 5 tier 1 and tier 2 water line renewal projects that were identified in the HDR report. And it has the timeline over the next 10 years. And then it also identifies the first 2 tranches first 2 bond issues to complete or have funds for the finish of engineering and land act for town center, as well as construction for town center, and then the engineering for Parkway in the first tranche, which was ends up being about 32 million. Which on the next pages after that, you can see the bond pro forma of the 28 million. Financed over 25 years.
What's the difference between the top red chart and this one?
So
I
mine,
know it's $1 difference for a while.
take that one.
Yeah, so if you look at the top graph or top table, it includes the Woodlands Parkway supplemental lines on its own line. The bottom table includes the Woodlands Parkway supplemental lines at the same time, meaning the top project assumes we're not going to do the supplemental lines immediately. The bottom one assumes we do. But the contract and the estimated bonds are based off the top table, that we would push the supplemental lines for Woodlands Parkway out 6-7 years.
But right now, we don't have data that says we need to do those at all.
Correct. Which is why we're proposing to push them out.
But we did agree that they would stay on the performa or stay on the timeline so that we didn't lose track of them,
Right.
but not committing to do them until they're reevaluated, I think at the 5-year mark, as I recall. So they wouldn't be in these first 2 bond issues.
So what's going to be the ask or the vote when we vote on this? Is it the bonds of
8 million.
75 and 45?
It's,
Or is it the,
this is for up to 75 million and only for the tier 1 projects.
okay, but it's not specified whether tier 1 projects, whether supplementals are done.
It does. It actually states, I think in the appendix, it does not list the supplemental lines on exhibit 8.
Exhibit A does.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, it
Does.
does include them. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's gotta be decided if they're gonna be
Yeah.
dropped out of the tier 1 for exhibit A or not.
So can you explain to me, the supplemental lines do have cost items starting in fiscal year 2030 up here,
Correct.
right? Are we just accelerating them in the bottom one and doing it earlier?
We are.
And it's a greater cost to do that by accelerating it?
No, you save $8 million by doing it, right?
Yeah, by not putting them off.
Well, the top bond is what, 55 and the bottom is 64? What am I missing here?
No.
Are you adding
The top the top you do them separate and it's 33 plus 18. And the bottom you do them at the same time and it's 42.
Right.
Okay.
There's more expense associated with pulling it forward and doing it earlier.
No, it's more expensive delaying it. It's a sum of 33 plus 18.
Are you getting the 33?
So on top one, you've got the base Woodlands project
Oh, I see.
and then you've got the supplemental lines. And you're saying we're going to delay doing supplemental until we reevaluate them in 2030. And by delaying them, you make them into a separate project and you have inflation with them. So you have 2 line items related to Woodlands Parkway. I don't know why I'm talking about this rather than you guys.
You're doing a pretty good job.
Well,
Okay.
I get that part, but what are these tables down here, the first bond, second bond, first bond, second bond, why are there differences in price on those? And why is the first one cheaper, and even though that's supposed to be more expensive based on what Brad defined? You see what I'm talking about?
Because the
Yes.
first bond doesn't, the top one doesn't include. The top one has a supplemental going beyond these first two bonds,
The Jack, one way to look at
Okay.
it real quick is,
okay?
Okay, I got it.
see the color coding?
Yeah, I got it.
So-
So just,
If it's not color coded, it's not in that initial cost.
got it.
So what I would propose is that table one, exhibit A says item 3, the supplemental is to be determined, right? That's the way it's in the budget, but we're not gonna spend it until, well, I don't know, I guess you have to, are we gonna have to decide this year whether we do them together, or we do them separate? If you want to do them together, you gotta start the end of this year, right?
Yeah, and design on that line would start 6 months after the bond's approved, roughly.
Yeah.
So in theory, you'd need to know within the next 9 months to a year.
I think we need to think about what the supplemental agreement actually says and whether we're being asked to, the way the supplemental is written, it goes with the top table.
Right.
Right?
So the total of the top table is about 55,891, and the bottom is 65,458.
Well, no, because you gotta go back.
Plus issuance costs.
Yeah, so
Plus
the
issuance.
first, go past the first page,
Yes,
and then there's 4 more pages.
yes.
The first 2 of those 4 pages are the actual bond issues without the supplemental lines. The second 2, pages 3 and 4, are with the supplement. So you'll see the bond issue. The first bond issue goes from 32.3 to 34.2. No supplemental versus with supplemental. And then the second bond issue goes from 30 to 39.
So adding the supplemental adds how much cost?
Total bond issue would go, the first one is first one's 2 million roughly, and the second one is 9, so roughly 11 million.
Yeah, that's,
Total
the-
bond issue.
yeah, that's the 8.8. If you look at the front numbers and you add in all the
Yeah.
expenses, you get up to
Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
So you can either, the numbers in the front and the numbers in the back are related, but they're not the same.
Correct.
So this is for, I mean, the agenda is for our discussion and consideration. Is there an expectation that you come back next month and ask us to approve it?
There's a hope that next month y'all would approve.
Is there gonna be a corresponding indication what the impact will be if it's passed to taxpayers?
That's
Yeah,
what the
that's-
we're talking.
Yeah, the financial advisor has actually done that and indicated that that for the first 32, so basically for every 32 million, it would increase, it would translate to a wholesale rate of about 47 cents. That translates at the average water bill of 10,000 a month to $4.70 per month per every 32 million project.
So we're not passing this on as taxes, it's proposed taxing on the water bill.
Well, that's how, yes, yes.
That when the River Authority issues bond, they only have the authority to issue revenue bonds. And that's how, so the new infrastructure that was constructed by the River Authority was funded the same way. The contract had a mechanism to allow for the issuance of bonds for the construction of new assets, but there wasn't a mechanism back when these agreements were first put into place to provide a bonding mechanism for rehabilitation and replacement. So we crossed this issue for the first time back in 2016, and Into the Muds entered into a supplemental agreement and very similar format. So we worked with the River Authority to come up with a structure of an agreement that would allow for the River Authority to issue their revenue bonds, similar to what they did for new infrastructure, to do that for older infrastructure, because before that, all rehab and rehabilitation has been done on a cash flow basis. But the River Authority has started to have these larger ticket, more expensive jobs that had to be done that didn't make sense to cash flow because the useful life post repair replacement was much longer, and it didn't make sense to have whatever the ratepayer was at the time that the job was done, have to pay full freight versus spreading it out over folks who are able to use that asset over a much longer useful life. So it made sense to tie the cost, responsibility to the life of the asset. So the bonds here are expected to have a term not longer than 25 years. I think these numbers are based on 20. But that's the purpose of the supplemental, is to enable that bonding mechanism for the River Authority that will be passed through in wholesale rates. And now how we handle it on the retail side, we've talked a little bit about, there's going to be more discussion about it in the over the course of the summer as we get into budgeting time. Part of it, so 47 cents per, bond issue. So for the two first tier ones, we're probably talking, a little under $1. We talked about moving the GRP reduction of the 11 cents over to create this infrastructure renewal fund to help whittle away at that first 47 cents. So now we're down to 36. Eric's working with a consultant to do a water rate analysis to be able to see how our rates stack up against other, other communities and what we may need to do to adjust our rates. So based on how that, report, is concluded, we'll see how much we need to include on the retail side. Do we up it to capture all that 36 cents? Do we do a portion of it and rely on some of the rebate that the MUDs are getting back from the River Authority for the billing for this past year to help, smooth that increased line versus it going up more steeply? So we've got, the good thing is we have a lot of options as we figure out how we're going to pass this on to the retail customers. What we do know is from the River Authority to fund the debt, it's going to be on the wholesale rate, and then we have options on the MUD side, how we fund that through our retail customers.
And I presume as the MUDs, we will approve whatever options you come up with.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
because that will be for rate adjustments on the retail side. This is to approve the supplemental that enables the River Authority to go and issue the bonds. And then I would guess, Chris, would y'all be looking to layer in the cost of that and the rates that would be approved this fall?
Preferably, we'd start them all September 1, so to go through the whole budget process. You wouldn't have a mid-year. If need be, you could do something like a January 1 rate increase. It just gets a little funky and awkward, but
Yeah.
can
I
be.
have two questions. This is going to be spread among all the months, correct? How confident are you in the numbers as far as increases or over budget overruns, et cetera?
Feel pretty semi-confident with them as much as you can be, but like anything with the price of gas, oil, everything's going up. So that's why if you look at the numbers, it comes out to 62, 65 million for projects. There is a $10 million buffer in there up to 75 million to account for anything else that needs to occur. So if there are budget overruns or something, we've already accounted for that. If we did not have that buffer in there and the costs were high, we'd have to come back and do a cash call to the funds.
So that's about what, 15%?
Go back to the
Buffer.
engineering accounts.
Buffer, 15.
15,
I was 10 out of 65.
yeah, that's six
But-
and a half, 7.
About 15%.
So let me build on that.
Yeah, 515 or so.
Confidence. So it looks like the River Authority's added 30% contingency on top of what HDR estimated.
20%. 20. Leave it.
Well, the notes say in addition to HDR's budgets include 30%.
I was looking at the town center line, which is a little bit further down.
And town center is slightly different since it is so far in design.
And so 30% contingency. I thought HDR had contingency in their numbers already. Did they?
HDR, to my knowledge, they didn't have contingency, they didn't have engineering, land acquisition, and possibly something else,
Okay, so you
Or
added,
inflation.
inflation thing.
yeah. So you added inflation. So you, back to your, they've got 30% contingency in the numbers. It takes them to 65, then they've got 10 million on top of the 65 potential. overrun.
Okay, so it's in addition to the 10 million.
These numbers have 30% on top.
Well, the number that hasn't been engineered up, correct?
Right.
The other part that it's further along is only 20%.
Can I ask a question? Maybe help me put this into, set that spreadsheet aside for a second and go to the attachment A, exhibit A on the contract. I got tier 1 water line renewal projects, 1, 3. So my understanding that all that spreadsheet makes that 3 things up.
It does. So the 3 items under there, the tier 1s are in the top and the bottom table. It just depends, are they done together, then done separate?
Top and bottom, and the contract says that we're gonna sell a bond, 2 issues totaling $75 million that would pay for these 3 things.
Up to 75 million to pay for those 3 things. That's how it's written up this time.
So a total of 150.
And then,
No, the 2 bonds together can only equal 75 million.
and one of them can't exceed 45, right? So that's what we're gonna build with this money. And we can't use it for anything else except that 1 through 3
Right.
until it becomes surplus, at which point we can turn it to somebody. Got it.
Similar to what we did with the last bond issue, that if, when there were surplus funds, they could go into the R&R fund once the projects that were, intended to be funded with the bond proceeds for people.
And I don't think it makes much difference, but you mentioned that 25 years versus 20, this says 25 years,
Correct, not to exceed.
not to exceed, so you can go a little farther.
It's kind of like, we say, well, yeah, the bonds can't be issued for more than 2% over the bond buyer index. Well, we fully expect it to be lower than that, but industry standard, like City of Houston conditions, require you to not go above that number. So those are the outside parameters for the bond issue. Bonds got to be callable within 10 years. They may be callable at 10, they may be callable at 8, but those are, again, all outside parameters for the bond issues. There is also a mechanism in there that was not in the 2016 supplemental agreement that provides the Woodlands Water Audit Committee with the ability to provide input on the pricing terms for the bond issues when they come up. So with there being 2 bond issues and the second one possibly being, up to 5 years out from the approval date of the supplemental, it's good to have the audit committee with some input ability.
There's quite a bit of talk about the customer having input for this and that. So has that been a part of most agreements? That's worked pretty well, where you get input, you don't get any vote, but there's input as to.
Well, the votes on the supplemental. Then the input is just as you go to market,
Yeah, I'm understand. I'm just saying it's input as to what the fee and the cost, et cetera. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, for the slow learner here, the 30% contingency, is that reflected in that 24 million to 12?
Which number? Sorry.
The town center, total project cost, we've got 30% contingency. Where's that number? Is that reflected on the spreadsheet here?
Not in it on the numbers. So that, looking at the top here, this 24,200,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 30% is included in
It
that,
doesn't.
in each of those numbers.
The same thing down below and all the others. Okay, thank you.
Only that. That's 20%. That's for everyone.
Yeah, good. Town center has 20%, the rest of them has 30%. That's why I like standardization.
Brad, back to your question, what's next? Some of the MUDs have put this on next month's agenda as an action item, but also a discussion item, so that if you have input for us on the agreement, we can take that into consideration, add that to the conversation. Keep in mind, from the time the agreement is approved, we need all 10 months to approve it. Otherwise, we sound like 9 agree to it and 1 doesn't. We have 9 supplemental agreements, and then we have to figure out how the 10th district covers their costs, because projects do need to move forward. Once we sell bonds, that's when we are able to start acquiring easements for the town center project. Typically, that's a 6 to 9 month process. So it would be easily 12 months before a contractor is on the ground from the time bonds are sold, before dirt pipe is being replaced in the ground.
That's good information. Appreciate that. I guess, maybe you guys could help me from a historical standpoint. This authorizes or requires that MUD 7 enters an agreement and assumes this as a commitment to pay back. But this doesn't have the mechanism in which we're going to pay it back filled out.
So the way that districts pay is through the wholesale rate.
Right, but we don't have those numbers in front of us.
That should be the next meeting. If we're gonna do an evaluation, we should have those numbers.
So y'all have done that.
Yep, if we look at the wholesale numbers, looked at an average of SGRA, water over the last 3 years and came up with that, annual increase that.
Yeah, but we don't see that in the paperwork.
We don't have that here. I could definitely put that in front of you, more specific terms next time. But yeah, the high level estimate based on, rough calculations is the 47 cents.
I think that just needs to be input for the next meeting.
And, again, that's the amount of increase, that 47 cents was necessary to pay for a bond that has around $2.5 million in annual debt service obligations. That $2.5 million in annual debt service is based on an assumed interest rate of 4.45%, which is shown, in the bond performance here. That's higher than current market. I say that to say there's always going to be some, conservatism and, lack of precision and what we're, estimating until we go and price the bonds and know exactly our amount and our, interest rate.
So you're on the high side of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Because basically this vote commits our ratepayers to
Potentially. an
potentially up
increase.
to, 94 cents
Take care of the ball.
to take care of the bonds. Okay.
For now, and we'll be issuing more bonds in the future, correct?
Well, we may. I mean,
Page 60, little number F there. Net effective interest rate in each series of bonds will not exceed 2% above the highest average interest rate. Isn't that pretty high, 2%?
That's what I was saying is the industry standard and what's required by the TCEQ by the city of Houston and the consent conditions for the MUDs. So that's standard. That's what we had for the last version of this as well. The bonds are negotiated by the financial advisor to get the best rate that they can achieve. So, what the rate actually ends up being is, what is, market at the time, but you can probably speak more
Yeah,
about
outside
it
some-
your
some
your
really-
desk.
Some really strange market conditions, the pricing of the bonds would be well within the threshold. I think as Brian mentioned, that 2% above the index is just a guideline and a maximum that we have to adhere to.
I mean, that's like a 50% increase over where the rates are today, roughly.
In practice, we're absolutely going to, price the bonds at the lowest rate we can.
It's just a standard terms and condition that was in.
I mean, if you look at what's, on pages 2 and following, you get $32 million. We're going to spend $17 million in interest payments. Right?
Money.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the board would like is come back next month with more of the details about what impact this has on our ratepayers and assumptions that go into that. And then we need to be clear on the document looks like it's tied to the top of the table. Are we, I mean, is that
How
Could be tied
important
to
is,
either one of them.
You could, yeah. Well, I mean, is that, do you want signals from us to say, bring back?
Yeah, if y'all
And
want.
Then you end up with 5 of the muds went the top table and 5 of the muds went the bottom table. I mean, I think just,
Recommendation is not to do the supplemental lines on Woodlands Parkway at this point in time, because you don't have enough data, there's no need. HCR even recommended pushing them off a little
Right,
bit.
yeah.
But if you wanted to be fiscally conservative and maybe save some future money, then you could do them right now at this time.
but you would spend that money prematurely. Anyway, yeah.
So
so, okay, it's not necessary to go from 12 to 16 inch pipes. That's a supplementary.
yeah, I'm not sure. The supplemental lines on Woodlands Parkway are just a few branch lines. Town Center has a line going from 12 to 16 inch that is required.
I think what we talked about when we were going through the condition-based assessment was that we would include at those intersections where the branches go off or the supplemental lines go off, that we would extend it about 100 feet either way, just to get clear of the intersection. So that when we came back to do those at some date in the later, that we wouldn't have to be dealing with the intersection. So, I mean, it'd be my recommendation to proceed with the base projects and follow the lead of what was discussed prior, which was to go back and look at those supplementals in year 5 or whenever, and see if they're ready. If they're not ready, we don't include them. In the case of Woodlands Parkway, I think we all agreed at that point that on that project, we wouldn't include them. So I think that's the way you go on the first 2 projects. And then once you get to projects 3, 4, and 5, that's when you look into the supplemental lines a little bit closer to see what the scope of those 3 tier 2 projects should be going forward. And that's slated to be 5 years or several years from now.
But maybe just how you word item 3 on the scope of work. To make it clear that that's a deferred decision, not to be started immediately. But the funds are, well, because really, you can't finish the supplemental lines with this supplemental agreement.
Correct. I could start design, but not that. I'd actually recommend if you wanted to not do the supplemental lines until the condition assessment, 5 years, then y'all would recommend to take that item 3 and remove it from tier 1 and put it as a tier 2. Because if you do that, we can't start on until you say go.
Yeah, and that way too, if you have surplus funds and you wanna, after you've done the first 2 projects and you have some surplus funds for the bond issue, you could redirect it to it because there's language already in the supplemental that allows for funds to go to tier 2.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And you'll update the other muds that have already met.
Right, yeah, no one's voted. There wasn't a voting item.
Yeah.
They've just asked for us to modify that to give them the opportunity to, if they're ready.
So are we comfortable on what we're asking to see next month? We'll see the impact on the rate. We'll move item 3 from tier 1 to tier 2
Mhm.
and
So then the budget is more in line with 1, the first top one,
the
right?
top one.
Contract with the amended.
David, you okay? You got everything you need to come back next month?
We'll get you what you need and we'll tighten up our numbers here.
So what happens if not all the muds agree to the same thing? Do we go back, discuss it, and then vote again?
No, I mean, at that point, it would be up to the river authority how to proceed with a district that didn't approve. I mean, like the default is a cash call. Yeah, whether a district would want to use that much cash on hand, again, when the useful life of the asset is a lot longer, don't know.
Could be depending upon the reason they rejected it. Could be they need more time or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one step at a time. Let's kind of see how this shakes out.
I mean, we put an awful lot of work into fine tuning the scope of this work.
Yes.
Yeah,
Getting
the
tier
goal
1,
was
tier 2 and
Not bring
moving
this
tier
to the
3.
boards until we
Yeah.
had agreement among all the directors as to what should go in this, because we didn't want to end up in that situation that you're talking about of having a holdout. Let's not bring this to the districts until there's agreement on what should be included, and felt that point had been reached. So we wouldn't have the situation we're talking about.
Yeah, I think with that slight modification to the supplemental to clear up what we're gonna do with the lines, I think that's
That would
awesome.
make
Yeah,
everybody
that makes
happy.
it cleaner. Yep.
He also bring back the timing, expected to be rate increase with the new budget year in September.
And we'll just assume that they're all approved in April, just to have some type of schedule so we can do that.
A timeline might be helpful. Show approval, you guys issue the bonds, construction starts or whatever.
Yeah. Not a problem. And since Ed went through it so well earlier, I think he's volunteered for it, right?
Yeah. He's working on it right now.
Not a problem. We'll get that.
You guys, good? This is kind of speak now, or
That's good.
we come back next month, we'll be expecting a vote.
Before an election?
Before the election, yeah. Yeah. You want to come? I mean, I don't feel great about it, but I think it's the amount of work we put into this. I think this, unless I see something else that says this is what we should be doing. And, we have the option. We could defer from April to May. I don't think it changes the answer, though. If I saw something in here that said, man, we're spending $20 million, I don't want to spend, and I think we can do something different in May, I'd say, wait.
I think y'all worked that out, like you said,
Yeah.
preparing this.
Yeah.
Trying to get it down to the minimum that we needed to spend or could spend, but we need to get started, I think.
But the optics are not great doing it before the election, but.
I think the other months will be in agreement that we have to spend it, so.
Their elections are gonna be a little more, they've got more seats up, I think. They could have more turnover. We're gonna have one turnover, possibly, or maybe none.
Maybe not, yeah.
We may not be impacted, but some of the other muds may be impacted by the election.
Okay. Back to the agenda here. So 14, we're done. FFDUEs, everybody's favorite topic.
Yes, Kim and I have been working over the last probably 5 or 6 months to go through all of the SFDUEs, all the connections that make up service area number 1, which is the service area that serves wastewater treatment plant number 1. And as you can see on the map, that's all of the parcels included, and that's only, basically the southern southeastern third of the Woodlands. We went through all of the parcels of land. We evaluated them to confirm.
Are those maps available? Brad seems to be the only one who has them.
Yeah, they're all right there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our task was to go through the service area to confirm what the overall demand it would be required based on the existing connections and then also the undeveloped properties, so developed and undeveloped. Along the way, we looked at each developed property to make sure that land uses were consistent with current usage and those types of things. We then cross-referenced with Howard Hughes on the undeveloped properties that they own to identify any, what their expected demand allocation would be on undeveloped properties. And the results are here. And so a little bit of a uptick from the 6th and final, not too much from what the F&I study that was done in 2024. So I think the next step would be for SJRA to kind of take these and then bring back a proposal for, what the next step is, which likely is to re-engage Corello to, take this information and finish their assessment. If you recall, their assessment didn't originally include the right sizing of the plant, which is why this was asked upon us to do. So that may be something that is considered in their re-engagement to finish their work. The box at the bottom, currently the plant is designed on 217. So what that means is 217 gallons per SFDUE per connection. That equals a certain amount. When you look at actual flows on developed properties, we're like in the 150s as the actual, which comes up with 3 MGD, that 3 million, last 5-year average of 3 million. So, that's, and I think F&I was proposing the changes to go to 200. And they had their reasons for it as part of their analysis, because I think the high mark was in 2016 for both plant 1, plant 2, 191 and 200. So they went with 200 to be conservative, I think. So we didn't make any determination of what the rate sizing would be. Our goal was to confirm that the parcels are the parcels and the land use is consistent with what is forecasted to be for the development of developed properties. So at least that could be, verified. So that was what was audited. We will continue, as a side note, this was a significant undertaking to build this database in modern GIS, Esri GIS database, which will allow us to do more accurate tracking in the future. And our next step that we hope to get done by the summer is to finish this same process analysis for the rest of the woodlands. So we'll be able to track SFDUEs, daily or monthly or annually. Because typically we'll report that to SGRA so they can confirm that, they do have capacity necessary to meet the demands of each PUD.
The undeveloped number went up quite a bit. It doubled. Is that due to changes in, what do I want to say, regulations? That they're allowed to build more?
No, that was just based on Howard Hughes's estimate of what they have plans for various tracks.
The 22nd final was 2017.
2017, right?
So what's interesting, well, lots of interesting things on here, but one is from 2017 to 2026, we actually went down a little bit from.
We noticed that, yeah. And that was, we didn't find any major anomalies or abnormalities. There were, when I say a handful, probably, less than 10 or 12 tracks where the land use might have changed. So that's very minor, subtle changes. I think that's what most of that is. Yeah, the big change was the undeveloped.
And I guess the takeaway is you look at the 5-year average, actual flow is 3 million. And the ultimate build out, if you use the 217 is 6 and use the 200, it's 5.6.
And I just put that in for reference.
Yeah, but I mean, that has the impact of what Corella does. I mean, so do we really think we're comfortable with it ultimately have almost twice as much wastewater?
Well, it didn't go up as exponentially as demonstrated by their numbers. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, TCQ won't allow you to design to your average or your minimum, which is. So it will likely be, even if the plant we're able to be re-rated to something in between, TCQ would dictate that, whatever that is.
Based on these numbers.
Well, that based on a few things. When F&I gave their recommendation of 200, we're looking at the last 5 or 7 years at that time of peak flows through the plant, or average daily flows. Plant 1 was 191 in 2016, and plant 2 was 200 in 2016. What happened in 2016? No, the second Memorial Day, there's 2 years of Memorial Day floods, and then tax day was in 2016 also. So, and the three highest of the last 8 years that I saw were 15, 16, and 17. Those 3 years of those big floods. So you can't ignore that because obviously it happened before and it's probably going to happen again. But I think that's what went into those numbers. But I think that's why I say that, you know, it may be worth, if we're going to look at that right sizing, kind of look at that data. Because since those years, and then you keep in mind, you go past another couple of years, you get into COVID, and that changed things, particularly on the commercial side. And then you kind of look at the last 5 years coming out of COVID, and it kind of stabilizes in the mid 150s, roughly.
So no action today, and next action will be some recommendation from the River Authority on re-engaging Colorado. Maybe next month, we think, or,
That's what my understanding is.
okay.
Talk about that, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments for Eric? And Kim, you both of you guys, really appreciate this work.
Thank you.
All right, I think,
No journal items under the attorney's report today.
okay. We did a quick GM report based upon the interest of time and our next topic.
We'll go, yes, we can go quick. Just wanted to point out page 82 and 83, we updated those visuals that we utilize in a lot of different social media and other presentations that we give. We update those every couple of years. Just kind of shows where you compare to other municipalities in the area. We have that Corpus Christi article on the back. You can kind of see what they're going through. I just think it's, you know, an example of the importance of perhaps not ignoring what's staring you in the face in terms of, you know, water availability.
Striking part about that, because I've been following that for several months, and just that council was elected. They sat down, the new ones, and said that this costs too much and we're not gonna do it. Well, you know, got that other thing where you've got about a year's left of water, or you're gonna have to start shutting down treatment, you know, factories, refineries, construction, and there is no other. So, I mean, it's interesting how Abbott's trying to help them, I think, enough. Help. But I think it's interesting that, you know, some of those are getting to the point where this is not whether it costs or not. It's just, do you want it or not?
Yeah.
This talks about a vote that was scheduled coming up. Do you know, did they vote again and
I didn't see that. I haven't
reverse
seen
their
that.
decision?
Imagine somebody tagged it.
Yeah.
Let's put it off a week.
Just wanted to point out, I think I mentioned last month that we had some success hiring some folks there. They've been onboarded. We're going through training and they're starting to work on the ditch stuff already. And then we're gonna kind of help out the contractors that are doing the heavier work. Also, not that we do it, but first mowing of the year happens next month across the woodlands as well. You might see us doing some hydrant flushing. This is the time of year when we typically do flushing. And those are the major items I had. John, let me kick it to John for communications.
Afternoon, page 78 for your communications report. Up top there, you can see our list of primary communication topics since we last met. One of those being the MUD annual update. So we've been working on that, of course, for a while now. That was due to mail out with this month's bill. If you received that paper bill, you noticed it was not in there. We were notified by the printer 2 days prior to printing that they could not accommodate all 10 MUDs inserts. They have a cap. Explain why later, but 7 being on that list of ones that did not print out. Those will go out with next month's bill. That update did go out via e-blast, social media. It's on the homepage. A link is on the homepage to your individual MUD page. Find it there. And we are working with them to solve this going forward so that we don't encounter this again. Another emphasis lately has been on community survey. That's still in process. We're gonna let that run one more week. We should have findings for you next time we meet. Examples of current communication pieces. Wanted to highlight that Woodlands Community Magazine article on page 80 that was on our residential water use last year, which was basically pat on the back to the community. Good job, residents. We use 2% more water than 2024, despite having 32% less precipitation. Good job on wise water use to the community. And then you have an in-person outreach calendar at the bottom of page 81. And any questions? Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Eric, I guess it's back to you for the global agreement.
Sure, just to
Yes, Emily was our rep at that meeting, so. Pipe up.
give you an update. We did have a meeting with Aubrey Spirit, attended with his team to kind of just go over some of the ins and outs of how they got through the settlement, and then also some parts of the global amendment. Thought it was a really good meeting. Folks got an opportunity to ask questions. We also presented to them, well, prior to that, but not in the meeting, but gave our comments that I received from the various directors of the Woodlands. So they have that. As Chris indicated earlier, they're receiving, I think he said that there's one more entity that they're receiving comments from. Our expectation is that they will assess those comments from all the JRP participants, make any adjustments as needed to the draft document. And then hopefully in the next couple months, we'll get an updated version or the final version, and then presume that there would be a voting on that by the end of the year, because it would need to be in place by January of 2027 is our understanding. So nothing, no action or anything tonight, just kind of an update there.
So people feel like they got their questions answered.
The feedback I got, it was no holding back type of meeting, which was good. Folks got the ability to get their questions answered.
Are we clear on the waiver of the import fees?
I think so, yeah.
You want to share anything, highlights?
One probably big highlight is that, Aubrey said basically that, and the lawyer who was with him, they said this was an attempt getting everybody's information and going through this global amendment process with Conroe was an attempt to get them to settle. So this next phase is they wanted to have a global agreement in place, and that was part of their settlement, but now they're making the attempt with everybody, and we'll see where it lands. So it's not that it was, everything was in stone. It was malleable, it sounded like. So I think that brought a lot of ease to people because they know there are some disagreements. So
This represents on content of the.
of just some of the items that were not in there. So the questions and everything that were asked is just getting everybody's feedback, and then this is all just an attempt to move the ball forward, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be as it is or at all. And that was interesting too.
Yeah, one thing I picked up, it seemed like there were some people that were under the impression that the global agreement would allow certain participants to get out of their responsibility going forward, and that's just not the case. So, for instance, the import fee, if they cannot provide that, then that entity can go elsewhere, but they can't remove the core base pumpage that they're already in for. There cannot be any negative impact to the rates for any growth that SJ can accommodate through surface water. I don't think that that was 100% clear before. It became, I didn't pick up on it until there was more conversation in that room. And I realized, I think some folks think that there's the ability for certain folks to get out of responsibility. That's not true.
I had heard that a couple of times too.
Just the way we were talking about it, I think in previous meetings, I see where people maybe got that, but that was clarified in that meeting that if you're in, you're not getting out, in terms of your responsibility to pay back the debt that we're in for, which is, the plant and the lines. But that any future expansion, we would not be, that a deal would have to be figured out. If ever there were new regulations that required an expansion to the plant, then a new arrangement would need to be developed amongst those that wanted to be in on the new expansion. I think that was key too.
So that's the major change is we're no longer committed to funding future expansions. Yeah. Okay.
And I think the other thing that was kind of clear too is the global amendment secures that. Not approving the global amendment just means that a new deal would need to be made in the future. It leaves it open, but it doesn't necessarily obligate you because San River Authority doesn't have any responsibility to obligate anybody anymore past the current GRP because there really isn't a GRP anymore. There's no groundwater reduction requirement, countywide. So some folks are saying, well, then does it really matter at all? Whether or not this is approved or not, because you're going to have to enter into a new deal whenever new regulations come into play and expansion might occur then. So that's kind of how it was.
So the River Authority going present back or a timeline on when they think they'll have a revised proposal and when we might vote?
I don't think they specifically gave a date, but they said that it'll take a couple months to just go through all the comments and then expect we'll hear back. I would say hopefully by May or June would be my guess.
So let's look at the trustee meeting summary. Eric, you want to start that or I can add to that?
Yeah, the main thing I think we've discussed most in this meeting that was aligned with that meeting, except we haven't talked about trustees approving our request. I had made recommendation or request to get their authorization to request of the GRP additional surface water. As you know, we're at 50-50 blend between surface water and groundwater. And I noted that or noticed that a number of different entities across the county have been asking for more surface water. We talked about Conroe earlier, among others that there are. And so I was realizing that plant is coming to its capacity and the ability for us to get more is running out, the timeline on that. So that was the purpose of my request. And the trustees approved me to officially request 1 million gallons a day extra. So that would theoretically bring our surface water blend to about 58% from 50-50. And that wouldn't go into effect, I think, until September, I think Chris said.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the main other thing. All these other things we just
Pretty much talking about.
Yeah, on your agenda today.
No closed session.
You saved us.
Yeah. Gave us a few minutes to spare.
Okay, any items we haven't already talked about for future agendas? I think the big thing will be the supplemental agreement. Okay, any other comments? Close the meeting?